Welcome to this walkthrough video on how to log a job. We're Clockwork IT and this is our solution TotalCTRL. In this run through we'll be going through the simple process of how to log a job in the system and some of the elements that sit within the job itself. We understand that the process of logging a job in different companies can be different, and this may start with a customer inquiry, or it may start with a site survey or a whole other element of things. We're going to go through a fairly simple process today, which is essentially logging a job and then being able to do things off the back of that. To log a job in the system, we can do that via the new job button here, or we can go to jobs, which is the same as popping across to the nav bar and clicking into jobs. And from here, we can then break that down, or we can log a new job directly here. This box that pops is the same box that will pop in any area of the system that you try and log a job. The only difference will be that in some areas it will pre-populate the address depending on if you're inside of the customer or an address specifically. We're not, so it's blank, and we're going to choose one here. So I can come in and I can say filter down to a customer. We can say the local college, select that in, and we then pull our contact through and we can start the process. Now we can start by linking this up or down the chain with jobs, so we can select a parent at this point, but we're not going to do that for this run through. We can also specify if we're going to work in a specific building or buildings, so we can say the main building and any areas within that building. So we can say we're going to be in the reception and the hallway, for example. Select. That will then pull this through. This feeds down to the mobile, so the operatives and the engineers know where they're working. What type of job are we doing? We can pop this open. We can then choose the job type. I'm going to go with an emergency call out. We can select that down, and then because we've got an emergency call out, I can select the sub job type linked to that. So I can come in here and I can say it is a repair request, let's say, for example. Now, as much as we are selecting job types here, there is a lot going on in the background. So behind job types and also the sub job types, we've got things like automation happening with statuses, form requirements, skill set requirements, all of this linking in the background so that you don't have to do a lot of these mandatory tasks or user heavy and time consuming tasks every time. They just happen in the background. Is this job linked to a contract? I'm going to say yes, it is in this case. So we can go and choose our approved contract, select it in, and then the job status, user group and user all auto assign as I've set my defaults here. We can pop in an expected closure date, so we could say we want to have this done by tomorrow. And if we do adhere to SLAs, because I've selected a contract, I've got my contract SLAs on, we can override that and say our SLA is going to start tomorrow, and I want it to start at, say, 8:30. So you can do 8:30. And now our SLA will not start until this day and this time, so we don't log the job, and the SLA ends up failing a day before the job's even due. When we're setting up a job in the system, we also can choose if it's chargeable. Now there's a lot going on in the background around this, but this falls in rate cards, expenses and consumable and additional charges on a job. So this can pull in that automation logic again if you need to. We can also choose assets. So are we going to work on an asset? Well, this is an emergency call out and it's a repair request. So maybe it's on an asset. So we can select that and I can say choose the fire exit door or the oven, for example. Now the reason only 2 assets have come back is because it's showing me what's in the buildings in the areas I've selected. So again, because I've chosen them here, it filters them here to only show me the relevant assets that I've filtered down to. So I'm going to say we're going to work on the fire exit door. So we'll select that in, pull it down, and we've now got an asset linked in as well. So all of this takes place up here, the filtering, the buildings, the areas, but also contracts. If I select a contract and the assets aren't on the contract, it won't appear here. So again, you've got this higher level of filtering. Job subject and description. Now I'm going to say that this is a repair request for fire door, and I can say that the description is customer has called and explained that the fire door is not closing properly, which is obviously a huge issue, so we need to get that sorted. I can then add in some notes, and this could be that customer has asked us to use the rear door as students may be in the front entrance, maybe something like that. These notes are not customer facing, they are only for the back office and the engineers to see. You can see we've got a dynamic field here, and you can add as many of these as you want. There may be additional data you want to capture whilst logging jobs. We can pop attachments in, we can do customer references, we could do third-party references. So if you're working with subcontractors, you can add that in there. Same with work orders, miscellaneous numbers. We can do trigger point percentages around profit and loss, and we can take application numbers and the application date. So there's a lot of data we can capture within this initial job logging screen. We're going to go with that for now. I'm happy to send the contact an email to let them know I've logged the job. However, you can turn that off manually or default this on or off in the system settings. I press save, and it's then going to transfer us into now what is our job screen. And the job screen houses a lot of information. Initially, we've got our job number here. So this is CCC, that is the customer code, and it's -297, so it's the 297th job. I can use this code to search for this job from anywhere in the system through the global search. So I can take that and I can type that in or paste it in, and it pulls that job back for me. I've also got things like my SLAs. Now I've delayed mine. However, if I hadn't have delayed those and pressed save, it would be ticking away to start. So I have a response SLA, a first fix, and a final fix. These start at green, go to sort of orange and then red as you fail. But we do have reports in the background and alerts based on percentages, so we can have trigger points to let you know before you fail, which again is super handy. On the left hand side is your timeline. This will log everything that's happened within the job from start to finish. So I've logged that. I turned the email off, so it hasn't sent a customer email, but that would have logged that too. And as the engineers depart, arrive, complete as we schedule jobs, manage purchase orders, invoicing, that sort of stuff, this timeline fills up automatically with everything that happens. So when you come back in 6 months, a week, or 2 years, your data's captured in here and you know who's done what on the day and the time, so there's no issues, and you've got that paper trail just in case. You've also got what we class as milestones. Now, milestones are really, really handy, and these are at call type specific. So every different type of call type can have its own milestones. For this, have I updated Outlook? Have I issued an invoice? Have I checked the operative list? For example, you can specify what these are, and I can say, yes, I've updated Outlook. I can update the milestone, and again, it lets me know who's done it and when. So anybody coming into this job that needs to quickly check something can see that this has been done, this specific task. You then got all of these tabs over here on the right hand side. Now, the idea is that you can do pretty much everything within a job, so you never have to leave the screen. Now, the overview tab is pretty simple. It's just the job overview. All of the information we've logged, the contract it's linked to, any purchase order or quoted costs, consumable costs, that sort of thing. You can see the description here, along with any notes, any assets we've linked, just the one. You can actually do hire equipment. So have we got anything out on hire to the customer? Have we used any equipment for this job? So are we using some of our internal assets? Is that a lawnmower? Is it some testing equipment? For example, we also have asset servicing. Now this is a slightly more bespoke process that usually comes into play when you've got assets being serviced on a 6-monthly annual basis, that sort of thing. And usually this is automatic. However, we're in a reactive one-off job, so we can add these manually. So if I was to come up here and I do my ad hoc service, I can say add an ad hoc fire door service, link it, then processes through, and the job now has this in. This will be tracked against the asset. We can see if it's complete. I can then check my service when it's done, any PDF reports, images against it. So again, a super clean, easy process. And then additional costs are things like consumables logged on the job. So again, if they need to be logged manually, you can do that from the back office. And if the job was chargeable, it would automatically create those invoice lines for you. Appointments is where you're managing the actual appointments itself. I can come in here and I can quickly schedule an engineer to show you how that looks. I can then just say select operative 1, pop them through. I can see that there's no clashes of time. Maybe this is a 2-hour job, and again, it's going to be for tomorrow, and we want that to be done at, say, 10 AM in the morning. Again, perfect, no clashes in diary. I can schedule the engineer, and that instantly pops down to the tablet or the mobile device, and it's available for them to use. And you can see we've got an appointment card here, and as they're using the mobile device, it'll capture time on site, departed, arrival, that sort of stuff, pull signatures back, and again can be reported on. We can also manage purchase orders, related jobs, tickets. We can email from within the system here, attaching job cards and form responses. We've got file storage. You can see all the forms and responses here that are required, all the way through to any quotes and invoices on the job as well. So we've got a full management suite within inside of the job. So you should never really have to leave this screen unless you need to do a very bespoke and specific task. Hopefully this has given you an idea of how jobs are logged in the system in a one-way flow. Off the back of this, as it is a job, we can come up here and we can do things like create quotes off the back of it. We can create purchase orders. We can create child jobs. So again, the process flow can expand out as you require it to, and it doesn't just have to be a straight on process. This could be a site audit that starts and sends somebody to site. Off the back of that, we then create the quote. We can then off the back of that create a follow-on job, so on and so on. So again, the system is flexible enough to handle all scenarios as required. If you have any other questions on how the system works or would like to speak to us in a bit more detail, you are more than welcome to give us a call. You can get us on 033 005 77170.